Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a true crime story that honestly outsmarts anything Hollywood could ever dream up. We're looking at literally the biggest financial scandal in modern history. It's a massive web of deceit that shook a developing nation to its absolute core, bought off Wall Street's finance, and funded some of the most glamorous lifestyles you could possibly imagine.
Okay, let's dive into this. $4.5 billion. I mean, just take a second to really process that number. We aren't talking about cash physically hauled out of a bank vault in the dead of night. No, this was money systematically siphoned directly from Malaysia's Public Future Fund. This was money meant to build schools, hospitals, and clean energy projects for everyday citizens. And it just completely vanished.
To understand the sheer, unbelievable stakes of this heist, we really have to start with this surreal Hollywood cold open. It's August 2016, and the FBI is raiding the Beverly Hills mansion of megastar Leonardo DiCaprio. And they aren't there for some routine check. They're seizing items that absolutely defy ordinary logic. We're talking an original Marlon Brando Oscar, a $9 million Jean-Michel Basquiat painting, and a $3.2 million Picasso. Why? Well, the FBI was seizing these multi-million-dollar artifacts because they were all bought with stolen money.
So who's the criminal mastermind behind all this? A mafia don? Some massive international corruption syndicate? Nope. The mastermind was actually a 27-year-old student named Jho Low. And what's incredibly fascinating here is the sheer paradox of this guy. I mean, Jho Low was an absolute ghost in the system. He held zero official government positions, his name wasn't on any official contracts, yet with a single nod, he somehow held the keys to empty an entire nation's treasury.
Act 1. Assembling the crew. Now, every great heist requires putting together an untouchable network, right? A crew that can bypass the world's tightest security. So let's look at how Jho Low actually pulled this off. He was born in 1982 to a moderately wealthy Malaysian family and was sent to London's elite Harrow School in 2000 and later to Wharton Business School in the US. But here's the thing. He didn't use these elite schools just for a world-class education. He basically used them as a VIP pass. He positioned himself as this billionaire prince, throwing absolutely lavish parties to build trust. And through this carefully crafted image, he gained direct access to ultra-rich Arab royals and, crucially, a fellow student named Riza Aziz, who just happened to be the stepson of Malaysia's future Prime Minister Najib Razak.
And this core philosophy was Jho Low's guiding light. If you want to play the biggest game, you don't need your own money. You just need direct access to people with political power. He weaponized this idea at a very young age. He figured out that to control billions, you definitely don't need to be a billionaire yourself. You just need the absolute trust of the people who hold the keys to a country's wealth and power.
Act 2. The setup and the first score. By 2009, that political connection really paid off. Malaysia's ruling party had just suffered a setback in the elections, and the newly appointed Prime Minister Najib Razak desperately needed massive political funding to secure his future. So, Jho Low sees his opening and pitches the ultimate Trojan horse. He proposes 1MDB. Now, to the public and the media, 1MDB was marketed as this glittering sovereign wealth fund meant to transform Malaysia's economy and create jobs. But if you look closely at the structural flaws intentionally built into it, wow, there were absolutely no independent audit committees to check the accounts. And the absolute masterstroke? Prime Minister Najib Razak held exclusive, sole signing authority for major transactions. Nobody could question his financial moves. And pulling the strings from the shadows, controlling every major deal, that was Jho Low.
Let's move to 2009 and see how this builds, because this setup quickly pays off. 1MDB announces a massive $2.5 billion joint venture with a foreign energy company called Petro Saudi, which, by the way, was just a 2-year-old shell company run by Jho Low's Wharton buddies. So, 1MDB wires $1 billion in cash to what's supposed to be a joint venture account. But in a stunning sleight of hand, $700 million of that cash is secretly diverted to an account belonging to something called Goodstar Limited. And Goodstar wasn't a partner, it was literally just a shell company in the Seychelles owned entirely by Jho Low. Just like that, overnight, $700 million of public money vanished.
Act 3. The billion-dollar magic trick. Having tested the waters and realizing that international banks and oversight committees were practically asleep at the wheel, Jho Low knew he needed to level up. By 2012, he set his sights on the international bond market, and this brilliantly illustrates the sheer audacity of his next move. Honestly, it all comes down to one single word. 1MDB announced partnerships with a highly legitimate Abu Dhabi state-owned company called Abar Investments PJS. But Jho Low and his crew went and set up a completely fake shell company in the British Virgin Islands. They called it Abar Investments PJS Limited. Seriously, just one single word, limited. That one word completely fooled global banks, passed standard background checks, and allowed Jho Low to seamlessly siphon an unbelievable $1.4 billion right into his own accounts.
But to even raise those billions in the first place, Jho Low brought in the absolute heavyweights, Goldman Sachs. Goldman issued $3.5 billion in bonds for 1MDB. And for their trouble, they charged an unprecedented $600 million in fees. To put that into perspective, that is roughly 10 times the standard market rate. When the fees are that astronomically high, Wall Street bankers like Goldman's Southeast Asia head Tim Leitzner, well, they simply looked the other way, while a developing nation was essentially being robbed blind.
Act 4. Money, Movies, and Politics.
Now we reach the climax of the absolute excess. With billions resting in untraceable accounts, Jho Low's childhood obsession with fame morphed into total madness. Honestly, it's hard to process these numbers without sheer disbelief. He bought a $250 million super yacht equipped with a helipad, a $30.5 million penthouse in Manhattan. He gave $8 million in diamonds to model Miranda Kerr. But the most staggering irony of all this, he used $100 million of stolen Malaysian public funds to actually finance the blockbuster movie The Wolf of Wall Street. You literally can't make this up. The mastermind of the greatest real-world financial fraud was paying to produce a movie about a financial fraudster.
But while Jho Low is out partying with Paris Hilton and Hollywood elites, the Malaysian government stayed suspiciously quiet. Why? Well, because of a very specific number. $681 million. Between 2011 and 2013, this massive sum was transferred directly from Jho Low's shell networks into the personal bank account of Prime Minister Najib Razak. The literal keeper of the nation's treasury was looting his own vault to fund his 2013 election campaign. He later claimed it was just a generous personal donation from the Saudi royal family. Right.
Act 5. The ultimate downfall. The thing is, you just cannot move billions of dollars across the global financial system without leaving a massive digital footprint. Eventually, the bill comes due. In 2015, the dam finally broke. An anonymous whistleblower risked absolutely everything to leak thousands of emails, bank transfers, and official files to British journalist Claire Recastle-Braun. By July of that year, the Wall Street Journal dropped an explosive exposé showing the money trail leading directly to the Prime Minister's personal accounts. Naturally, Najib Razak panicked. He fired his own attorney general, who was actually preparing an arrest warrant at the time. He blocked news websites, tried to legally bully the press, but it was way too late. Financial regulators in Singapore, Switzerland, and the U.S. Department of Justice were rapidly closing in, freezing accounts and seizing assets worldwide.
The Malaysian public was, understandably, utterly enraged. Everyday citizens working day and night to survive realized their own leader had basically stolen their children's future. In 2018, this anger fueled a truly historic election upset. 92-year-old Mahathir Mohamad came out of retirement specifically to challenge Najib, and the ruling party that had held on to power for 7 decades was finally voted out. That completely shattered Najib's political shield.
Just days later, police raided Najib Razak's private residences, and the inventory they found perfectly mirrors the unchecked, grotesque greed of this entire crime. Are you ready for this? They seized over 12,000 pieces of jewelry, 557 designer handbags, 423 luxury watches, and 2,200 diamond rings. The total estimated value of this hoard? $273 million. All of this hidden away while everyday citizens battled inflation and unemployment. So the crucial point is, when the dust finally settled, the consequences were historic. Prime Minister Najib Razak was convicted and sentenced to 12 years in prison, which was a massive first in Malaysia's history. Wall Street giant Goldman Sachs had to pay $5.4 billion in global fines and settlements just to avoid completely collapsing under U.S. DOJ pressure. The Hollywood stars quietly returned their stolen Picassos and Oscars to the FBI, but Jho Low, the absolute mastermind of it all, completely vanished into thin air. He's still on the run today, heavily rumored to be living in Macau or China, potentially even having altered his face with plastic surgery. But here is the truly devastating reality of this whole situation. $4.5 billion was stolen from the 1MDB fund. Despite this massive, unprecedented global effort, international agencies have only been able to recover roughly $1 billion. Think about that missing gap. That represents the schools, the clean energy infrastructure, and the healthcare that the Malaysian people will never get back. That money is permanently lost in a maze of international shell companies. Which leaves us with this final, deeply unsettling thought. As of today, in 2026, Jho Low remains untouchable. If an unknown 27-year-old student with zero official power could manipulate global banks, bribe a prime minister, fund Hollywood blockbusters, and completely disappear with billions of dollars, what does that actually say about the security and integrity of our entire global financial system? Think about that the next time you swipe your card. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the systems around you.